You're listening to LSU Daily with Matt Musso, your home for all things LSU sports.
Off and running here on another edition of LSU Daily. Welcome in and glad to have you with me. Thank you for being here. We march on through LSU Alabama week, leading you up to Saturday night in Death Valley. Want to dive back into the game a little bit today. Look at LSU's defensive backs versus the Alabama passing game today, and then we'll probably flip that later in the week and look at LSU's offense just as a whole versus Alabama's defense. We did kind of preview that a little bit in the bye week, but we'll bring it back as we get later in the week. But today, main focus, LSU defensive backs, specifically the corners, versus the Alabama passing game. Also, yes, the college football playoff rankings did make their first appearance on Tuesday night. Very surface level thoughts. There's still a long way to go, but I do have a couple thoughts that I will pass on as we get down the back half of the show today and send you off into your day. Media opportunities here coming up. Brian Kelly, Kalen DeBoer, both on the SEC Coaches Teleconference Wednesday. Also, the SEC Availability Report coming out on Wednesday evening as well. So I'll have updates from all of that throughout the week for you as well. All right, be sure to subscribe, share, and like. Follow me on social media at Musso Matthew on Twitter. Find me on Facebook as well. And, of course, on Instagram at Matthew Musso1. If you do feel so inclined, it would be greatly appreciated. Now, let's dive back in to LSU and Alabama. And you might be saying, why are we focusing so much on the passing game in this one? Everyone expects Jalen Milroe to run. LSU's big problem in the Texas A&M game was Marcel Reed and his legs. Jalen Milroe last season went for over $150 on you on the ground with 4 rushing touchdowns. You know, he threw in the low 2s for yardage. What are we looking at the passing game here for? Well, in short, because Alabama has really focused in on Jalen Milroe taking the next step as a passer this season. And that's been to very mixed results. That's one reason. Alabama's going to come in and try to throw the ball. Now, yes, weather's going to have a factor in that. If it's a sloppy track and wet ball and all that, you could very well see more running. And we'll get to the running as well. That'll happen a little bit later in the week. But they have absolutely had him throw the ball more. So that's one reason. Number 2, you may have heard about a certain 17-year-old. Actually, I'm certain that you've heard about the 17-year-old Ryan Williams. He's 17 if you didn't know. He has the ability to completely ruin your life in Alabama's receiving corps. Kid is awesome. There is no two ways around it. Now, yes, he will have a bigger role in this game because of some depth issues. We mentioned that with Cole Adams going down for the season, and we're going to touch on that a little bit more here because it's not just in the receiving game that Ryan Williams will have a much bigger role. But how LSU covers Ryan Williams is going to dictate really what Jalen Milroe is going to do in the running game. Because LSU is going to have to be able to lock down Williams and stay alert elsewhere on the field for Milroe to extend plays, try to find the open guy, and even scramble, pick up his yards on scrambles. That's where so many of those yards came from last season when Milroe ran against you. A lot of it was scramble. On Monday, Brian Kelly was asked about the progress that Ashton Stamps and Zy Alexander have made throughout this season and the role that Corey Raymond has played in it. And I loved BK's answer because, and I'm going to play it for you, but I this part is cut out. He started the answer with the Corey Raymond aspect and said, look, I'd love to get up here every week and just, talk about the impact of Corey Raymond. And then he went on like Bo Davis, Brad Davis, all those guys. love to talk about their impact, but at a certain point, it is the player. And then that's when he kind of went into, and he's like, it doesn't go unnoticed. That's intricate to it, and they're all doing a great job. But at certain points, it is on the player. And that's when he went in to Alexander and Stamps and the progress that they have made.
At the end of the day, players have to play consistently based upon trusting the technique and trusting their ability. I think what we see here with the corners in particular is a trust in the teaching and then a trust in themselves. They're trusting themselves a lot more. They're playing with a lot more confidence. And I think that that's the next step in the maturation of a player like Stamps, for example. I think Alexander's had a little bit more of that because he's a little bit more of an older player in a sense, right? But that's really it, right? Players playing with more confidence, I think, at that position, trusting their teaching and certainly trusting themselves that they can go out there and they can play.
So I loved that answer because, like I said, at the beginning, he's like, man, look, yeah, Corey's a part of it. All the assistant coaches, position coaches are a part of it. And I could stand up here and credit them all day, but it's the players that are finally taking hold of that teaching and applying it and trusting the technique, trusting what they've been taught, and then trusting themselves to go out there and execute it. And he mentions Stamps and saying like that's the next step in his development. And look, if you look at Ashton Stamps broken down in targets and receptions off those targets and things of that nature, he's had a lot of footballs thrown at him recently because Zy Alexander's the closest thing you have to a shutdown corner. Like Zy Alexander's the closest thing you have to a lockdown, take away one side of the field, shutdown corner. And he's going to draw the assignment of Ryan Williams more often than not, probably for the whole game. And we'll see how he does. He's going to lose some because Ryan Williams is a freak. But can he win more than he loses? If he does, that's going to severely limit the Alabama passing game. But I mean, if you look at Stamps, the one thing I've loved about him really all year is short memory. And we talked about that. I've loved that really with LSU secondary kind of as a whole this year. And we talked about that all the way going back to the opener against USC. I've loved the short memory. Like, take the Ole Miss game, for example, for a guy like Stamps. Stamps was targeted 7 times in the Ole Miss game. He allowed 4 receptions. 57% receptions. But he also broke up 3 passes in that game. He also had 3 passes defended. So, yes, you're living with him giving up some stuff, but he is out there making plays. Arkansas was a rough day for him. He gave up 80% receptions. But Zy Alexander completely locked down the other side of the field in that football game to the tune of being targeted one time, playing 46 snaps. And he did not allow a reception. So, yeah, they're going to go away from him. They're going to target Stamps more. But you stuffed the run that day as well. Because your secondary was locked down. Blake Baker likes to play a lot of man coverage. I'm curious to see really where they go in this game. Playing the man coverage, obviously you open up running lanes for a quarterback more often than not. And 2, like I said, I think Zy Alexander's going to go out there and do his best to shut down Ryan Williams, but the kid's arguably the best freshman receiver in the country. He's going to get his. He's going to be a future first-round draft pick. He's going to be awesome in the NFL. So in looking at all of that, sure, it's going to be a tough task for Zy. And what I wonder, and I'm not expecting this, but I just want to throw it out there. Because I think this honestly could leave your defense in a few compromised positions as well. But because Zy has been so locked down, if you don't, and again, this is hypothetical. I'm not saying this is what they're going to do. Not saying this is what they should do. I'm just throwing it out there. if you don't put him on Jeremy Bernard and then use Ashton Stamps and another guy to double Ryan Williams and just try to completely take him out of the game and have Alexander, who's been your best lockdown, cover Alabama's second best receiver. It's oversimplifying it. I fully understand, but it is something that I've just thought of. I fully expect Zy Alexander to go out there and be assigned Ryan Williams. Say, hey, follow number 2 all over the field tonight and go get him. Zy Alexander, for what it's worth, has been is Pro Football Focus's third best graded corner for the season in college football. He has taken a huge jump, and Brian Kelly alluded to that. Like, man, look, he's played a lot of football, and he's trusting himself now and going with the teaching. And you have seen the emergence of Jeremy Bernard if you're looking at Alabama the last few weeks. He's the second leading receiver, definitely in receptions, closer to Williams there with 35, but Williams is about 300 more yards than him. He's just not the consistent big play threat that Williams is. But if you look at his last 2 games, they've gone to him a lot. Against Tennessee on the road, 5 receptions, 72 yards. Against Missouri at home, 5 receptions, 82 yards. He didn't find the end zone either of those games, but they're getting him the football more. And they're really going to have to do that without Cole Adams. Kalen DeBoer talked about the depth at wide receiver now that Cole Adams is out for the season.
A couple weeks ago, we had multiple guys out with K-Law and Kobe, and that's where Cole got more playing time as well as some others. And so, again, unfortunately, we aren't at full strength there, but just much like most of the teams across the country are. So you're shorthanded, but you mix and match, and you continue to find the versatility in guys and put them into spots and, coach them up. And, there's a lot of cross-training that happens within positions, and receivers one of them. So guys that can play inside and outside both, we're going to utilize them to their fullest potential. But, it's always all hands on deck, especially this time of the year.
So he didn't give you any guys, but he did acknowledge they were thin at that spot and that they've kind of battled injuries there all season. And still they've tried to throw the ball. And that's the other reason when I was talking about the double team, scenario, I said, again, just like hypothetical, it's going to leave you susceptible elsewhere. And it could leave you susceptible to that third wide receiver and potentially them having the game of their life here. So I expect LSU to go out there, man coverage, like Blake Baker likes to do, and get after Williams and Bernard. Keep an eye on Bernard, though. He's coming along the last few weeks and been steady for Alabama, really, all season long. The other interesting thing here, real quick, is the return game, because Cole Adams is also Alabama's punt returner, and he's out for the season. We touched on that a little bit Tuesday. But Kalen DeBoer was asked who replaces Adams at punt returner, and the answer could have major implications Saturday night.
You will go with, who you feel best about, obviously. We need to continue to always build depth just in developing returners. You have seen just as much as anyone has that, we have younger guys that we've been putting out there with Bach and Ryan. Just over and over, you just can't catch enough kicks, punts, and then all the situations that come along with it. When to field it, when to fair catch it, the communication that happens, just being comfortable back there. It's reps and reps and reps of that. And so, kind of who you've been seeing is who we'll start out with Bach and Ryan.
Young guys, Bach and Ryan. They've tried to get him out there a little bit, sure. Combined, they've returned 5 punts this season. Combined, they've returned 5 punts. Ryan is obviously Ryan Williams, freshman. Dynamic freshman, but freshman. And if you're looking at Bach, that's Jalen Mbakwe, cornerback, freshman. It's 2 freshmen. And yes, like I said, they're both great athletes. They can both break open the football game when they need to. Like they are dynamic players. But they are freshmen. And the part of that that's so telling is Kalen DeBoer said, and he's right, it's not just, catch the ball and go. You can never catch enough punts, but it's when to field it, the situations, all of that. You're in a tight game in Tiger Stadium, places at full throat, going wild. Sometimes freshmen get a little bit ahead of themselves. Now, again, that being said, they could wreck your day in a hurry back there. They are that dynamic of a player. So that's going to be a real interesting, phase of the game, special teams this week to watch, especially in the return game. LSU has Xavier Thomas. You feel real good about that. That's an experienced punt returner. You're not going to get more experience as a punt returner in the SEC than Xavier Thomas. No, he hasn't broken the long one, but man, he's been incredibly steady back there. By the way, Xavier, Saturday would be a great time, my man. But you have the veteran experience back there and a guy who equally can just break one off at any time. That is going to be a very interesting phase of the game to watch. Then, of course, everybody's going to be paying attention to LSU's field goal unit and how they operate, because the last time we all saw them against Texas A&M, it was abhorrent. There's just really no other way around it. Bad snaps, bad holds, missed kicks, all of it in tandem, not good. So the first time, Ramos and the field goal team and the battery, as Brian Kelly calls it, Slade Roy, Peyton Todd, Ramos, all eyes are going to be on them the first time they run out there, and you will see them plenty, I would imagine, in this football game. So just wanted to throw out the special teams deal there, because I think we've seen games turn on punt returns before, plenty. Whether it's LSU taking one to the house or LSU's opponent taking one to the house, or even, hell, I'll take you back, Mississippi State 2022, Kelly's first year. LSU's down, I believe it was 13-0 at that point, and you have to punt, and it was Slade Roy who ran down the field with his hair on fire, made the tackle, forced the fumble. LSU recovers. They're set up with great field position. They go in and score. That to completely turn the game. LSU really they never really looked back. I mean, they that got them back into the football game. So we've seen it before, and it could very well happen again on Saturday. Okay, last thing, and then we'll get out of here. Quick, brief thoughts on the college football playoff rankings. There's a lot of football left to be played. There's a whole month left of the season. But to me, in ranking LSU and Alabama this week, the committee has set it up perfectly. For a game where two teams still have to play, they've set it up perfectly. Alabama is 11th, so they are right in there in the playoff. And remember, that's really where you need to be because everyone assumes the group of 5 team is going to get that 12th spot as the at-large. And they're not going to, be really ranked right there. They're not going to be ranked in the top 12. They're just the highest ranked. So you really need to get to 11. So they have Alabama at 11. They have LSU at 15. I think that's right where LSU needs to be, quite honestly. The loss to USC isn't good. Alabama has 2 better losses than you. Yes, they're both in conference. I understand. But their 2 losses are better than your 2 losses. The A&M loss isn't a bad loss. The USC loss is. But that being said, you're 4 spots away from being in. And you play Alabama this week. What the committee has set up is LSU, you win, you're going to take their spot. Alabama, you lose, you're going to be out. LSU, you lose, you're going to be out. They have set it up perfectly for the must-win game that this is for both teams' playoff chances. In terms of the rest of the poll, I don't really care. We got a long way to go, right? That's been our conversation with this anytime we've talked about playoff, whether it was after A&M, or leading into A&M, or leading in to LSU's bye week. We had the conversation. It was always, look at everyone who still has to play in front of you, play each other. It can take care of itself. What LSU has to do is win. And the committee has put them in a position to where if LSU wins, they're going to be projected into the college football playoff next week. Win over Alabama, you're only 4 spots behind them. You can take that spot. You win, you take that spot. That's what I see when I look at that. And then you let the rest of it play out. That's simple. Go win if you're LSU. All right, it's going to wrap it up. Be sure to like, subscribe, share. Please subscribe. Please share. Follow me on social media as well. Be here next time for more. We'll continue LSU Alabama week on LSU Daily.